You said on X
Yeah.
that an example of the fraud that you have cited was $50 million of condoms was sent to Gaza. But after fact check this, it apparently Gaza in Mozambique, and the program was to protect them against HIV. So can you correct this statement? It wasn't sent to Hamas actually, it was sent to Mozambique, which makes sense why condoms was sent there.
Yeah.
And how can we make sure that all the statements that you said were correct, so we can trust what you're saying?
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes. I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms to anywhere, frankly. I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about. And that is really an enormous number of condoms, if you think about it. But if it went to Mozambique instead of Gaza, I'm like, okay, that's not as bad, but still, why are we doing that?
There you go.
Can you talk a little bit about how closely you're working with agency heads as you're directing these cuts? Do they have how much input do agency heads have when you're making these decisions?
Yeah, we work closely with the agency heads, yeah, there are sort of checks in place. So it's not just us just going in and doing things willy-nilly. It's in partnership with the agency heads, and I check frequently with the president to make sure that this is what the president wants to have happen. So we talk almost every day, and I double check things to make sure, is this something, Mr. President, you want us to do this? Then we'll do it.
Hey there, Patriots. This is True Outlaw Patriot coming at you with another one. The clip that I just showed you was a clip of Elon Musk answering a question to a reporter in the White House right next to Donald Trump. The reason why I'm making this video tonight, okay, it's two things. Number one is to clear up one of the stories that I covered on about the $50 million going to Hamas for condoms. That actually was fact checked, and it's not true. They did not send $50 million to Hamas for condoms. They actually sent $50 million to Mozambique for condoms, for the people of Mozambique to be protected from them having unsafe sex and spreading HIV. Which, in my opinion, I don't think that the United States, in all honesty, should be sending any kind of birth control or anything anywhere around the world to another population that, by all intents and purposes, can pretty much, or at least should pretty much know that maybe they shouldn't be having unprotected sex and spreading diseases. Okay? $50 million, whether it's being sent to Hamas or anybody in Mozambique, the question still remains: why? Why should we worry about what people do sexually in another country? I mean, that's just the way I see it. The second reason I'm putting it out is so people can see before the mainstream media gets a hold of this and starts to use this fact check as, you know what Elon Musk is doing is putting out false information. So this whole program that Trump and him are spearheading is all for naught. So let's get all that out the way, because what they're uncovering is way more than what anybody would have expected. Okay, regardless if they used our taxpayer money to send condoms to Hamas or Mozambique, that's not the relevant part. The relevant part is that money was sent to someone in the tens of millions of dollars to provide them condoms. Okay, that's what this is all about. So there was a press conference. This was just put out a couple of hours ago, and to me, I'm excited about it. I haven't seen it. I just seen that one little clip. I was like, you know what? There's a longer clip to this. It's about 32 minutes long, and supposedly Elon Musk is with Donald Trump, and Elon Musk has his son there. I don't know if anybody noticed when his son was on his shoulders when he was telling people to hush. I thought that was pretty funny. But they're going to be answering questions. Okay, and I think this is one of the best things that they can do as far as transparency. So like that, people don't have to say, well, Elon Musk is in the background, in the dark, or in the shadows, I should say, and Donald Trump is saying whatever he wants. Now we're going to get to see how these two act together and the way they're going to answer questions from the reporters. So this is going to be very good. It's my first time watching it with you guys. Without further ado, I'm going to cut in a couple of times, say a couple of things. But with that being said, let's get to this and see what they have to say. Here we go.
X, are you okay? This is X, and he's a great guy, high IQ. He's a high IQ individual.
And he's got this, check out this cool chain he's got.
So thank you very much. We had a busy day today. The king just left, and we've had a great discussion, terrific discussion concerning Gaza and everything else. We had discussions also about Saturday at 12 o'clock. It's going to be a big moment. We'll see what happens. I don't expect much happening with these people.
Let me cut in real quick. If anybody doesn't understand what he meant by the king and Saturday, the king of Jordan had to meet up with Donald Trump today. Donald Trump gave Hamas an ultimatum to release all the hostages by noon Saturday, this coming Saturday. Today's Tuesday. And he said he doesn't want any more hostages being released 2 at a time, 3 at a time. He wants them all released at the same time. And if they don't release them by noon, his words, you can look it up, he said that all hell is going to be unleashed. That's basically what he told Hamas. If you don't release them all at the same time, there's going to be some stuff that they're going to have to deal with. So I just wanted to, in case anybody's wondering, what is it that he's saying? What is it that he's meaning by the king and Saturday? That's what he's talking about. But let's continue.
But we'll see what happens. And we're going to be signing a very important deal today. It's DOGE. And I'm going to ask Elon to tell you a little bit about it and some of the things that we found, which are shocking.
There we go. Come on.
Billions and billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse. And I think it's very important. And that's one of the reasons I got elected. I said, we're going to do that. Nobody had any idea it was that bad, that sick, and that corrupt. And it seems hard to believe that judges want to try and stop us from looking for corruption, especially when we found hundreds of millions of dollars worth, much more than that, in just a short period of time. We want to weed out the corruption. And it seems hard to believe that a judge could say, we don't want you to do that. So maybe we have to look at the judges, because that's very serious. I think it's a very serious violation. I'll ask Elon Musk to say a few words, and we'll take some questions. Elon, go ahead.
Sure. So at a high level, if you say what is the goal of DOGE, and I think a significant part of the presidency is to restore democracy. This may seem like, well, are we in a democracy? Well, if you don't have a feedback loop, FAX, we'd have to, if you it's all right. Tell you, gravitas can be difficult sometimes. If there's not a good feedback loop from the people to the government, and if you have rule of the bureaucrat, or if the bureaucracy is in charge, and then what meaning does democracy actually have? If the people cannot vote and have their will be decided by their elected representatives in the form of the president and the Senate and the House, then we don't live in a democracy. We live in a bureaucracy.
Exactly.
So it's incredibly important that we close that feedback loop, we fix that feedback loop, and that the public's elected representatients, the president, the House, and the Senate, decide what happens, as opposed to a large unelected bureaucracy. This is not to say that there are good people who are in the federal bureaucracy, but you can't have an autonomous federal bureaucracy. You have to have one that is responsive to the people. That's the whole point of a democracy.
Exactly.
And if you looked at this, if you looked at the founders today and said, what do you think of the way things have turned out? Well, we have this unelected, fourth unconstitutional branch of government, which is the bureaucracy, which has in a lot of ways, currently more power than any elected representative. And this is not something that people want. And it's not. It does not match the will of the people. So it's just something we've got to fix. And then we've also got to address the deficit. So we've got a $2 trillion deficit. And if we don't do something about this deficit, the country's going bankrupt.
Yep.
I mean, it's really astounding that the interest payments alone on the national debt exceed the Defense Department budget, which is shocking because we spend a lot of money on defense. But and if that just keeps going, we're essentially going to bankrupt the country. So what I really want to say is, like, it's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential.
Exactly.
It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country, and it's essential for America to have the resources necessary to provide things to its citizens and not simply be servicing vast amounts of debt.
Exactly.
And also, could you mention some of the things that your team has found, some of the crazy numbers, including the woman that walked away with about $30 million?
Right.
All right, I'm gonna pause it real quick, people, before he answers that question. I agree with everything he says. Obviously, I mean, I'm sure anybody with half a brain will listen so far and agree. Just one quick thing before it slips my mind. If this is something that Donald Trump's gonna be doing, okay, going in front of the press, and in my opinion, I think he's doing it way more than his first time around. And you can leave your thoughts also in the comments. I think that he needs to do these types of public briefings, I guess you can say, with all the heads that he puts in charge. Like, if he's doing this with Elon, then I think he should do it with Kash Patel if he gets the nominee for head of the FBI, and so on and so forth. Like, just to put out all the information out there without just one side of the story, so people could just come out and say that Trump's the one saying and doing this, he's telling them what to do. In other words, the more transparency where people can see that the people that he put in charge are their own free thinkers and they're working in tandem with what needs to be done the right way in America, I think this will be something totally different, and it'll give even the naysayers the opportunity to sit there and listen to what Donald Trump has to say, who he has in charge to certain departments or certain agencies, and what they have to say and how they're working together, so everybody can see, you know what, they're not hiding anything. I mean, Obama said that he was the most transparent president. We know he wasn't. Biden said they were the most transparent, that he was the most transparent president and administration. No, they weren't. At least this way people can see that Trump and the heads of the departments that he's putting in charge are being totally transparent with the public, although we got to keep in mind that there's going to be a percentage of this that they can't be transparent with. That's just a given. Okay, they're not going to give 100% transparency, but even if they give us 80-90% transparency, I think that's going to help a lot of people understand what's really going on with the powers that be, the deep state, the Democrats, the rhinos, and whoever it is that's trying to destroy this country. But let's continue. Sorry about that.
Well, we do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position, which is, what happened at USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from. Maybe they're very good at investing, in which case we should take their investment advice, perhaps. But there seems to be mysteriously they get wealthy. We don't know why. Where does it come from?
I want Nancy Pelosi's...
I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at taxpayer expense. That's.
I gotta make a quick joke. I want Nancy Pelosi's plug. That's all I'm saying when it comes to stocks. I'm just kidding.
That's the honest truth of it. So, we're looking at, if you look at, say, Treasury, for example, basic controls that should be in place, that are in place in any company, such as making sure that any given payment has a payment categorization code, that there is a comment field that describes the payment, and that if a payment is on the do not pay list, that you don't actually pay it.
Exactly.
None of those things are true currently. So the reason that departments can't pass audits is because the payments don't have a categorization code. It's like just a massive number of blank checks just flying out the building. So you can't reconcile blank checks. You've got comment fields that are also blank, so you don't know why the payment was made. And then we've got this truly absurd, a do not pay list, which can take up to a year for an organization to get on a do not pay list.
Wow.
And this, we're talking about terrorist organizations, we're talking about known fraudsters, known aspects of waste, known things that do not match any congressional appropriation, can take up to a year to get on the list. And even once on the list is not used. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about here, we're really just talking about adding common sense controls that should be present, that haven't been present. So you say, like, well, how could such a thing arise? That seems crazy. When you understand that really everything is geared towards complaint minimization, so then you understand the motivations. So if people receive money, they don't complain, obviously. But if people don't receive money, they do complain. And the fraudsters complain the loudest and the fastest. Mm-hmm. So then when you understand that, then it makes sense. Oh, that's why everything they approve all the payments at Treasury.
Yep.
Because if you approve all the payments, you don't get complaints. But now we're saying that no, actually we are going to complain if money is spent badly, if your taxpayer dollars are not spent in a sensible and frugal manner, then that's not okay.
And I'm gonna cut it again. Sorry. And this is one of the reasons why the Democrats have been upset when Elon Trump went to the U.S. Treasury, so like that they can start checking out the books. They didn't want him to find out these discrepancies. Okay, you heard what he said, that the Treasury, they're like, you know what, we don't want no complaints, let's just send out the money. But it's like, who's the money going to? How come they're not utilizing their payment methods so they can track these payments and find out who it's going to? I don't know if anybody heard when he said it, but some of these organizations, they're terrorist supporters. Why are we giving money to organizations that the money could be going to terrorist groups? Okay, it just makes no sense. And then from A to Z, it doesn't even it's supposed to go from A to Z straight through all the channels, but it just basically goes from A to B and that's it disappears. And there's no accountability. But yet the Democrats are always talking about tax the rich, they make a lot of money, it's going to help the poor, we gotta put all that money back into the economy, back into this, back into that. But when it comes, and then they'll come out and say, well, we want to know your tax records, we want to know what you're doing with your money. I mean, even right now under the Biden administration, okay, and under Obama, if I remember correctly, you can put all the money you want in the bank, but go and try to take out $10,000 right away. You got to jump through hoops for your own money. Okay. But when it comes to the Democrats, it's like, no, don't worry about it. Once you pay those taxes, that's our money. We can say and do whatever we want with it. You don't need to know what's going on. And that's why they're so upset with Elon. But Elon and Trump are doing it the right way. They're going to USAID. They're going to FEMA. They're going to the Treasury Department. You know, the Democrats really thought that everything that Trump said he was going to do he wasn't going to be able to do it. On top of that, they didn't expect for Trump to start hitting them over the head with everything they're doing with Elon up until this point. And to think that today's Tuesday, right? I believe today makes, 3 weeks or something to that effect? And these Democrats they're just running scared because they know many of them are about to be exposed. And I truly hope and pray, and not trying to sound petty or vindictive, but that damn the politics, whoever's involved, regardless of party, regardless of the name, that they start being convicted and go to prison. Let's continue.
Your tax dollars need to be spent wisely on things that matter to the people.
Exactly.
I mean, these things, it's just common sense. It's not draconian or radical. I think it's really just saying, let's look at each of these expenditures and say, is this actually in the best interest of the people? Yep. And if it is, it's approved. If it's not, we should think about it. So, You know, and there's crazy things like just cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old.
Oh my God.
Now, do you know anyone who's 150? I don't. Okay.
Wow.
They should be on the Guinness Book of World Records. They're missing out.
That's insane.
So,
I'm sorry, people. I said I wasn't going to really cut into this, but I have to cut into this. I mean, because like I said, it's my first time watching it with you guys. I heard earlier today, watching some of the news, the way the Democrats keep saying and they're pushing out, especially that little weasel Harry Sisson and all these other mainstream social media just minions, saying that Trump is going to cut Social Security from people and is going to affect people on Social Security and Medicaid. Elon saying they're finding out that people are getting Social Security payments at 150 years old. Now they see why they're putting a hold on everything. They need to find out why is all this money going out continuously, and yet nobody questions it. And that's because the ones that are not questioning it, they know what's going on, and they're getting a cut. This is one of the biggest money laundering schemes that has been going on. It's not surprising though, but it's just that we are going to see more and more of the wasteful spending, okay, that the rhinos, that the Democrats have been doing. You know, all these actors that come out and say, we have your best interests at heart. And more is coming out. Another thing that came out today that I seen, and I'll play it in a second, was that they found a bill, I think it was, a tab, where they spent, I think it was up $2 or $3 million on sushi. Like a reoccurring bill, and it was to pay for sushi. I don't even know, and no offense towards anybody, I love sushi, I love the Japanese people. I think that the Japanese will look at that and be like, say what? $3 million on sushi? What, are you out of your mind? But then again, I mean, that was something that was put out there. We'll find out if it's true or not. Let's continue.
You know, that's the case where, like, I think they're probably dead. It's my guess.
Yeah.
Or they should be very famous, one of the two.
Pretty much.
And then there's a whole bunch of Social Security payments where there's no identifying information. Well, like, why is there no identifying information?
Probably illegals.
Obviously, we want to make sure that people who deserve to receive Social Security do receive it.
Exactly.
And that they receive it quickly and accurately. I'll tell you another crazy thing. So, you know, one of the things is like we are trying to sort of right-size the federal bureaucracy, just make sure that this. Obviously, there need to be a lot of people working for the federal government, but not as many as currently. Mm-hmm. So we're saying, well, okay, well, let's if people can retire, you know, with full benefits and everything, that would be good. They can retire, get their retirement payments, everything. And then we were told, this is actually, I think, a great anecdote, because we're told the most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like,
wow.
Well, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated, then written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. And I'm like, what do you mean a mine? Like, yeah, there's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork. And you look at a picture of this mine. We'll post some pictures afterwards.
Wow.
And this mine looks like something out of the 50s because it was started in 1955. So it looks like it's like a time warp. And then the speed, the limiting factor is the speed at which the mine shaft elevator can move determines how many people can retire from the federal government.
Unbelievable.
And the elevator breaks down sometimes, and then nobody can retire. Doesn't that sound crazy? There's like 1,000 people that work on this. So I think if we take those people and say, like, you know what, instead of working in a mine shaft and carrying manila envelopes to, you know, boxes in a mine shaft, you could do practically anything else, and you would add to the goods and services of the United States in a more useful way.
Exactly.
So anyway, so I think, you know, that's an example. And like at a high level, if you say, like, how do we increase prosperity, is we get people to shift from roles that are low to negative productivity to high productivity roles. And so you increase the total output of goods and services, which means that there's a higher standard of living available for everyone. That's the actual goal.
Exactly.
Everyone's very quiet about it. So are people normally this quiet?
Everybody's in shock.
Detractors, Mr. Musk.
What?
Including a lot of Democrats.
I have detractors?
You do, sir.
I don't believe it.
Say that you're orchestrating a hostile takeover of government and doing it in a non-transparent way. What's your response to that criticism?
Well, first of all, you couldn't ask for a stronger mandate from the public. The public voted. We have a majority of the public voting for President Trump. We won the House. We won the Senate. The people voted for major government reform.
Exactly.
There should be no doubt about that. That was on the campaign. The president spoke about that at every rally. The people voted for major government reform, and that's what the people are going to get. They're going to get what they voted for.
The Democrats don't want
And a lot of times, that people that don't get what they voted for. But in this presidency, they are going to get what they voted for.
Exactly.
And that's what democracy is all about.
but the Democrats don't want that.
Mr. Musk, the White House says that you will identify and excuse yourself from any conflicts of interest that you may have. Does that mean that you are in effect policing yourself? What are the checks and balances that are in place to ensure that there is accountability and transparency?
Well, we actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, our actions, we post our actions to the DOGE handle on X and to the DOGE website. So all of our actions are maximally transparent. In fact, I don't think there's been, I don't know of a case that where an organization has been more transparent than the DOGE organization.
Exactly.
So, you know, and the kind of things we're doing are, I think, very, very simple and basic. They're not, you know, what I mentioned, for example, about Treasury, just making sure that payments that go out, taxpayer money that goes out, is categorized correctly, that the payment is explained, that organizations on the do not pay list, which takes a lot to get there, that actually are not paid, which currently they are paid. These are not individual judgment decisions. These are about simply having sensible checks and balances in the system itself to ensure that taxpayer money is spent well. So it's got nothing to do with, like, say, a contract for some company of mine at all.
But if there is a conflict of interest when it comes to you yourself, for instance, you've received billions of dollars in federal contracts, when it comes to the Pentagon, for instance, which the president, I know, has directed you to look into.
Yeah.
Are you policing yourself in that? Is there any sort of accountability check and balance in place that would provide any transparency for the American people?
Well, all of our actions are fully public. So if you see anything, you say, like, wait a second, hey, Elon, that seems like maybe that's, you know, there's a conflict there. It's not like people are going to be shy about saying that. They'll say it immediately.
Yeah.
Including you yourself.
Yes. Transparency is what builds trust, not simply somebody asserting trust. So not somebody saying they're trustworthy, but transparency, so you can see everything that's going on. And then you can see, am I doing something that benefits one of my companies or not? It's totally obvious.
And if we thought that, we would not let him do that segment or look in that area if we thought there was a lack of transparency or a conflict of interest. And we watched that also. He's a big businessman. He's a successful guy. That's why we want him doing this. We don't want an unsuccessful guy doing this. Now, one thing also that Elon hasn't really mentioned are the groups of people that are getting some of these payments. They're ridiculous. And we're talking about billions of dollars that we've already found. We found fraud and abuse. I would say those two words as opposed to the third word that I usually use, but in this case, fraud and abuse. It's abusive because most of these things are virtually made up, or certainly money shouldn't be sent to them.
Laundering.
And you know what I'm talking about. It's
Laundering.
crazy. So, but we're talking about tens of billions of dollars that we've already found. And now a judge who's an activist judge wants to try and stop us from doing this. Why?
Yep.
Why would they want to do that? I campaigned on this. I campaigned on the fact that I said government is corrupt. And it is very corrupt. It's very, very, it's also foolish. As an example, a man has a contract for 3 months and the contract ends, but they keep paying him for the next 20 years, you know, because nobody ends a contract. You get a lot of that. You have a contract that's a 3-month contract. Now, normally, if you're in a small, in all fairness, it's the size of this thing is so big.
Yeah.
But if you have a contract and you're in a regular business, you end the contract in 3 months, you know it's a consultant. Here's a contract for 3 months, but it goes on for 20 years. And the guy doesn't say that he got money for 20 years, you know? They don't say it. They just keep getting checks month after month. And you have various things like that, and even much worse than that, actually, much worse. And I guess you call that incompetence, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop it. That's not called incompetence. That's called money laundering and getting a kickback. In other words, keep paying that contractor. He or she keeps their mouth shut, and they give you a portion of the money they're receiving. And when it's time for them to do taxes, they wind up getting tax breaks. So it all looks clean, but the truth of the matter is, the person finished their contract, they finished their job, but they're still getting payments and just spreading that money around. And that's the third word he doesn't want to say. And it's basically laundering 101, people. That's exactly what it is.
It could be corruption. It could be deals made on both sides, where
Yep, it is.
guy gets some money, he kicks. I think there's a lot of kickback here. I see a lot of kickback here.
There's a lot of kickback.
Oh, yeah.
Tremendous kickback, because nobody could be so stupid to give out some of these contracts, so he has to get a kickback.
This is what we needed, people.
So that's what I got elected for, that and borders and military and a lot of things, but
Yep.
this is a big part of it. And I hope that the court system is going to allow us to do what we have to do. We got elected to among other things, find all of this fraud, abuse, all of this horrible stuff going on. And we've already found billions of dollars, not like a little bit, billions, many billions of dollars. And when you get down to it, it's going to be probably close to $1 trillion. It could be close to $1 trillion that we're going to find. That will have quite an impact on the budget. And you'll go to a judge where they handpick a judge, and he has certain leanings. I'm not knocking anybody for that, but he has certain leanings, and he wants us to stop looking.
Wow.
How do you stop looking? I mean, we've already found it. We have a case in New York where a hotel has paid $59 million, $59 million because it's housing migrants, illegal migrants. All illegal, I believe.
And they were being paid twice the normal room rate at 100% occupancy.
Unbelievable.
So it's a racket.
Yeah.
Mr. Musk, I'm going to ask you a question. You said
Well,
on-
if I may sort of just going for the president's comments, at a high level, okay, well, what are the two ingredients that are really necessary in order to cut the budget deficit in half from 2 trillion to 1 trillion? And it's really two things: competence and caring.
Exactly.
And if you add competence and caring, you'll cut the budget deficit in half. And I fully expect to be scrutinized and get a daily proctology exam, basically. Might as well just camp out there. So it's not like I think I can get away with something. I'll be scrutinized nonstop. But with the support of the president, we can cut the budget deficit in half from 2 trillion to 1, and then with deregulation, because there's a lot of sort of regulations that don't ultimately serve the public good. We need to free the builders of America to build. And if we do that, that means I think we can get the economic growth to be maybe 3-4%, maybe 5%. And that means if you can get $1 trillion of economic growth and you cut the budget deficit by $1 trillion, between now and next year, there is no inflation. There's no inflation in 26. And if the government is not borrowing as much, it means that interest costs decline.
Yep.
So everyone's the mortgage, their car payment, their credit card bills, anything, their student debt, the monthly payments drop. That's a fantastic scenario.
I'm sorry, people, I got to cut it. My mind is just blown away. Why can't we have... it's funny, we have two people that are not politicians that have jumped into this lion's den. And they're explaining it in the most simplistic way, simplistic way, whichever word fits. And you would think, why can't the real politicians think this same way? Okay? They all take an oath. They all make promises. And it's always that they break their oath. They don't keep their promises. But at the same time, they don't want you to question them. And this mainly comes from the left. And it's one of the biggest money laundering scams. And what really surprises me is how many people still vote for them. Even if you explain this to them, you let them hear it from the horse's mouth. they are so hell-bent on just staying in power with the person that they voted for that they don't care who suffers out of all this, even if they suffer themselves. Okay? You have all these people protesting in Manhattan, trying to keep the illegal immigrants in New York, but yet the person that was renting out the hotel rooms was charging double. And I did a video on this about a month or two ago, that the hotel is not even owned by anybody in America. Okay, I believe who did I say was it Pakistan or something like that? I can't remember off the bat. But it's like if the hotel wasn't even open, Eric Adams had a lot to do with that. It was Turkey, I believe. People from Turkey. Okay, it's like, why would you go and take all this taxpayer money if the hotel was closed and then give them double of what those rooms would normally have been worth? If they couldn't make the money keeping it open, just charging regular, then they should have been happy enough just to get that regular pay for the room. No, they had to double down, double dip, and get paid double per room. And you have people supporting that. I'm telling you, we need more people in this government that have the same mindset as Trump and Elon. And I know a lot of you don't want to hear that. People think that I'm kissing ass. It's not about kissing ass. It's about what makes sense. It's called common sense thinking and governing. You can't just go and wave a magic wand over everything. The magic wand being basically lying to people, thinking that it's all going to change on its own as long as you keep them blinded with all the bullshit that you're telling them. It's ridiculous. But let's continue.
For the average American, I mean, imagine they go down the grocery aisle and the prices from one year to the next are the same.
Exactly.
And their mortgage, all their debt payments dropped. How great is that for the average American?
Yep.
We had
That's
no
what we're
idea. We had no idea we were going to find this much, and it's open. It's not like complicated. It's
not that
simple stuff.
complicated.
It's
like a lot of work. Yeah.
We can't believe it. A lot of work. A lot of smart people involved. Very, very smart people. But you're talking about anywhere maybe $500 billion. It's crazy the kind of numbers you're talking about. You know, normally when you're looking at something, you'll find you're looking for 1 out of 100. Here, you're almost reversing it. You look for one that's good.
Yeah.
And you can look at the title and you say, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And the public gets it. You know, the public gets it. You've seen the polls. The public is saying, why are we paying all this money? This for years, This has gone on.
Mr. Musk,
President Trump,
Yeah, go ahead. Wait, go ahead.
Senator Rand Paul today said that DOGE cuts will ultimately need a vote in Congress. Do you agree with that? Is that the plan?
I really don't know. I know this. We're finding tremendous fraud and tremendous abuse. If I need a vote of Congress to find fraud and abuse, it's fine with me. I think we'll get the vote, although there'll be some people that wouldn't vote.
And with that being said, people, when that information comes out, pay attention to who votes against DOGE. Okay? Never mind the Democrats, we already know. I mean, if any of you on the left out there watching this and so far you're mesmerized by what you're hearing and you're seeing it, you're seeing the truth and now you're thinking, your brain is moving. Yeah, you pay attention to the people you're voting for. As for I'm reaching out to all the Republicans out there, all the conservatives, all the patriots out here, that pay attention to all the Republicans that are going to vote against DOGE being, basically given to be given the green light to keep doing this. If they vote against it, you already know what to do come the midterms or whatever election there is. Let's continue.
How could a judge want to hold us back from finding all of this fraud and finding all of this incompetence? Why would that happen? Why would even Congress want to do that? Now, Congress, if we do need a vote, I think we'd get a very easy vote because we have a track record now. We've already found billions of dollars of abuse, incompetence, and corruption. A lot of corruption.
If a judge does block one of your policies, part of your agenda, will you abide by that ruling? Will you comply?
Well, I always abide by the courts, and then I'll have to appeal it. But then what he's done is he slowed down the momentum. Mm-hmm. And it gives crooked people more time to cover up the books.
Exactly.
You know, if a person's crooked and they get caught, other people see that, and all of a sudden it becomes harder later on. So,
Yeah.
the answer is I always abide by the courts, always abide by them, and will appeal. But appeals take a long time, and I would hope that a judge, if you go into a judge and you show him, here's a corrupt situation, we have a check to be sent, but we found it to be corrupt. Do you want us to send this corrupt check to a person, or do you want us not to give it and give it back to the taxpayer? I would hope a judge would say, don't send it, give it back to the taxpayer.
Exactly.
If I can add to that, what we're finding is that a bunch of the fraud is not even going to Americans. So I think we can all agree that if there's going to be fraud, it should at least go to Americans.
Exactly.
But a bunch of the fraud rings that are operating in the United States and taking advantage of the federal government, especially in the entitlements programs, are actually foreign fraud rings. They're operating in other countries and actually exporting money to other countries. Stop that.
Pretty much.
And this is big numbers. We're talking about $100 to $200 billion a year.
You know, when he said that they're exporting money to other countries, it just hit me. It reminded me of when there was a whistleblower from the military, I think it was, back when Obama was president, the way he blew the whistle on how the, American soldiers were ordered to guard the poppy seals in Afghanistan, and that they were sending pallets of money over to Afghanistan, and I believe at the time, or there still is, that it was the Taliban that was in charge of all that. So this is not surprising. It's just not that they're sending billions of dollars to other countries, while us Americans, Democrat, Republican, gay, straight, black, white, alike, are suffering. But you're going to have a faction of the country, okay, a voter base that is okay with that. And in all honesty, no, it's not. It's not okay for them. It's not okay for me. It's not okay for you. It's not okay for anybody, any American, to have to suffer with something like this. Unbelievable.
Serious money.
Mr. Musk, you said on X that an example of the fraud that you have cited was $50 million of condoms was sent to Gaza.
This was the piece I
But
played.
after fact check this, it apparently Gaza in Mozambique, and the program was to protect them against HIV. So can you correct this statement? It wasn't sent to Hamas actually. It was sent to Mozambique, which makes sense why condoms was sent there.
Yeah.
And how can we make sure that all the statements that you said were correct, so we can trust what you're saying?
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes.
There you go.
I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms to anywhere, frankly.
that right.
I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about. And that is really an enormous number of condoms, if you think about it.
Yeah.
But, if it went to Mozambique instead of Gaza, I'm like, okay, that's not as bad, but still, why are we doing that?
Mr. Musk, can you talk a little bit about how closely you're working with agency heads as you're directing these cuts? Do they have how much input do agency heads have when you're making these decisions?
We work closely with the agency heads, there are sort of checks in place. So it's not just us just going in and doing things willy-nilly. It's in partnership with the agency heads, and I check frequently with the president to make sure that this is what the president wants to have happen. So we talk almost every day, and I double check things to make sure, is this something, Mr. President, you want us to do this? Then we'll do it.
There you go.
USAID has been one of your main targets. Are you concerned at all that some of the cuts or that shutting that agency altogether may lead to diseases or other bigger problems starting in other countries that then come to the United States?
Yeah, so that's an interesting example. So that's something where we work closely with the State Department and Secretary Rubio. And we have, for example, turned on funding for Ebola prevention and for HIV prevention.
Left that, you said?
Yes, correct. And we are moving fast, so we will make mistakes, but we'll also fix the mistakes very quickly.
You think that's a worthy cause?
And that's a hell of a lot more than what the Democrats are going to do, because the Democrats just let the mistakes just pile up and pile up and pile up. At least they're willing to say, you know what? Yeah, they're being transparent. Yeah, we're going to make mistakes, but we're going to do everything. We're going to fix those mistakes. The Democrats are like, they'll cover up a mistake with another mistake and another mistake and keep making promises. And by the time you look at it, they've said it 10 times, but nothing was done. And then they just want people to forget it because they'll go and have some kind of scandal all of a sudden, oh, did you hear that Donald Trump ate some pink jelly beans and he made fun of Taylor Swift? You know, it's just asinine. Like I seen a content creator today saying that they spent more time Sunday talking about Donald Trump being at the Super Bowl than covering things that are important as far as the mainstream media goes. And it's true. And why do they do it? Because they want to take away what's going on. One of the stories over the weekend that they weren't touching on was that Tom Homan had to come out and say that somebody in the department has been leaking out information to illegals. And in Colorado, they were supposed to raid a couple of houses, a couple of buildings that were where Trinidad Agua gang members were at, and somebody leaked that to them. Somebody from the FBI supposedly leaked it to them, and they got away. So here's the mainstream media covering Trump on Sunday with all this scandal, but what happened over the weekend was way more important, because instead of the mainstream media saying, listen, these gang members got away, they might be in a city near you, to them that wasn't news. And that's what the Democrats do. That's what the powers that be do. That's what the deep state does. Like Trump kept saying, okay, they're trying. They're trying to destroy us from within. It's the enemy within. And you would think that the Democrats and the mainstream media, they talk so much about saying that they care about everybody. You would think they would say, you know what? Forget about the Super Bowl. These people got away. Do we have pictures? Do we know who they are? Where could they be headed? Let people know. But they won't do that. Let's continue.
USAID.
I think that there's some worthy things, but overall, if you say what was the bang for the buck, I would say it was not very good.
There you go.
And there was far too much of what USAID was doing was influencing elections in ways that I think were dubious and do not stand the light of day.
I just have to follow up to the Pentagon contracts. If you have received billions of dollars in contracts from the Pentagon, and the president's directing you to look into the Department of Defense, is that a conflict of interest?
And are going to do at the president's request.
Does that present a conflict of interest for you?
No, because you'd have to look at the individual contract and say, first of all, I'm not the one, filing the contract. It's people at SpaceX or someone who will be putting for the contract. And I'd like to say, if you see any contract where where it was awarded to SpaceX and it wasn't by far the best value for money for the taxpayer, let me know, because every one of them was.
There you go.
The president said the other day that you might look at treasuries. Could you explain that a little bit? What kind of fraud, and that question goes to both of you, what kind of fraud are you expecting to see or do you see right now in U.S. treasuries?
Yeah, I think you mean the Treasury Department as opposed to Treasury bills, or...
You also referenced treasuries on Air Force One the other night.
Go ahead.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, really, the first order of business is to make sure we're actually collecting, sorry for this, although my son might enjoy this, but he's sticking his fingers in my ears and stuff. So it's a bit hard to hear sometimes. Hey, stop that. No, the stuff we're doing with the Treasury Department is so basic that you can't believe it doesn't exist already. Mm-hmm. So for example, like I mentioned, just making sure that when a payment goes out, it has to have a payment categorization code. It's like, what type of payment is this? You can't just leave the field blank. Currently, many payments, the field is left blank. And you have to describe what's the payment for, some basic rationalization. That also is left blank. So this is why, the Pentagon, when's the last time the Pentagon passed an audit? I mean, a decade ago, maybe?
Yeah.
Ever? Really? And we want to, just in order to actually pass audits, you have to have financial information that allows you to trace the payments. And once in a while, the Treasury has to pause payments if it thinks the payment is going to a fraudulent organization. If a company or organization is on a do not pay list, we should not pay it. I'm sure you would agree. Like, if it's quite hard to get on that the do not pay list, it means that this is someone that is like dead people, terrorists, known fraudsters, that kind of thing. We should not pay them.
Obviously, I mean, that's the way it should be, but the Democrats and the powers that be, that's not how they want it. They want to keep funneling that money. And it's funny that he brought up the Pentagon. He said, when was the last time the Pentagon was audited? And it's true. You know, it's true, and I'm telling you, this is something that's way different than what a lot of people, and I believe that even some good-hearted people are looking at this as in a like in a cult. I'm not gonna say culture shock, but I guess you can use that. Like, they're gonna be in shock. Like, wait a minute, is all this legit? Because they have been so conditionalized to keep believing that what the government is doing is in the best interest of Americans, and now they're going to sit back and be like, wow, so we really have been duped for so long. Okay, and now the proof is coming out, and it's way more than what we even could think about. You know, I mean, it's insane. But before I finish playing the rest, hope you guys like it. If you do, hit the subscribe button, give it a thumbs up, leave comments. I want to thank all my new subscribers and all my subscribers here on YouTube and on Rumble. So with all that being said, it's only about, about 4 minutes left, something like that. Let's continue.
But currently we do, which is crazy. We should stop that.
Many transactions, and by the way, hundreds, thousands of transactions like that. You know, we have a big team, and for the sake of the country, I hope that the person that's in charge and the other people that report to me that are in charge are allowed to do the right thing, namely make sure everything's honest, legitimate, and competent.
Exactly.
But we're looking at just, when you look at USAID, that's one. We're going to look at the military, we're going to look at education.
There you go.
They're much bigger areas. But the USAID is really corrupt. I'll tell you, it's corrupt.
Okay.
It's incompetent, and it's really corrupt. And I can't imagine a judge saying, well, it may be corrupt, but you don't have the right. You got elected to look over the country and to, as we say, make America great again, but you don't have the right to go and look and see whether or not things are right that they're paying, or
yes, he
that
does.
things are honest that they're paying. And nobody can even believe this. Other people, law professors, they've been saying, how can you take that person's right away? You're supposed to be running the country, but we're not allowed to look. And
I'm gonna cut in real quick. If anybody looked at my video last night, I touched on USAID, and as far as like being like whoever's in power, being in control, the president, secretary of state, and forgot the third one. But I did my research. I spoke to a friend who's into geopolitics. I mean, I look up to him a lot. I get a lot of information, and I brought that up to him when I read the whole meaning, or whatever you want to call it, behind USAID. And there was one sentence that caught my attention, and that's why I called him and questioned him on that. And he basically, you know, knowing everything about USAID, he's the one that told me. He said yes. He goes, only the president, the secretary of state, and I forgot the third one. Like I said, forgive me. If you want the video last night, you'll see. They're in charge of saying yes or no to the money that's going to be given out. If they want to call it back a month later, the president has the right to basically say yes or no to anything pertaining to USAID. And this is where a lot of people are going to keep saying that Trump doesn't have that right. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. John F. Kennedy put USAID into motion under executive order. Donald Trump as president, under executive order, he can basically abolish USAID. Just wanted to throw that in. Let's continue.
who they're paying it to and what they're paying. We have massive amounts of fraud that we caught. I think we probably caught way over a lot of billions of dollars already in, what, 2 weeks?
Yes.
And it's going to go to numbers that you're not going to believe. And
Yep.
much, as I said, much is incompetence and much is dishonesty. We have to catch it. And the only way we're going to catch it is to look for it.
Yep.
And if a judge is going to say you're not allowed to look for it,
Nope.
that's pretty sad for our country. I don't understand how it could even work.
On the buyout program, can you personally guarantee that?
Which one?
The buyout program, the operative federal workers. Can you personally guarantee that the workers who opt in to resign now will be paid through
Well, they'll
September?
get their money, but they're getting a good deal. They're getting a big buyout. And what we're trying to do is reduce government. We have too many people. We have office space. It's occupied by 4%. Nobody's showing up to work because they were told not to. And then Biden gave them a 5-year pass, some of them, 48,000 of them, gave them a 5-year pass.
Oh, man.
That for 5 years, you don't have to show up to work.
Wow.
And let me tell you, this is largely, much of this stuff is because of Biden. It's his fault. He allowed this country, what he did on our border, what he did on our border is almost not as bad as what he did with all of these contracts that have come out. It's a very sad day when we look at it. I can't even believe it. But many contracts just extend and they just keep extending, and there was nobody there to correct it. And that cannot be, I can't imagine that could be held up by the court.
Exactly.
Any court that would say that the president or his representatives, like Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of State, whatever, doesn't have the right to go over their books and make sure everything's honest. I mean, how can you have a country? You can't have anything that way.
Exactly.
You can't have a business that way. You can't have a country that way. Hey, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
All right, that's where it ends right there. But there you go, folks. I mean, you heard it straight from the horse's mouths. You know, Elon said what he had to say. Trump said what he had to say, and basically let Elon talk and answer the questions of the reporters. A lot of people are going to try to edit snippets of this. Okay, we already know that, and try to spin it around. So you already know. You've heard it. I mean, I did a couple of cuts myself, but it wasn't to edit anything they said. It was because of copyrights and all that. I just have to edit, you know, but try to paste it back together as tight as possible from one frame to the next. But you're going to see people that are going to chop up this interview. They're going to chop all this up. Okay, they're going to put out their little YouTube or Twitter or TikTok shorts and make it seem like it's something it's not, instead of giving the full context. Okay, and if any of you on the left out there are watching this, even you would have to listen to this and be okay with the fact that, you know what? Yeah, we've been under thumb, and the left has accused the right, and the right has accused the left. How can you, as somebody on the left, ignore all this and not want Donald Trump and Elon Musk to go and find your taxpayer money and my taxpayer money? Because if you're okay with it, if you're okay with the corruption, the money laundering and all that, then you are on the wrong side of history. As a matter of fact, don't even consider yourself an American. Just move to one of the other countries that they're helping out and just make room for someone from another country who wants to come here and be a true blue American. And I mean that. Because at some point, when do you open up your eyes and say, you know what? I was wrong. And by you admitting that you're wrong does not make you a bad person. Especially if you're going to come out and say, you know what? I was wrong. I'm not going to think like this anymore. But if you're going to say I was wrong and I don't care, they can keep doing it, that's what's going to make you a bad person. Plain and simple. But anyway, I thought this was great. I hope that Trump, does a lot more of this with different heads of the departments that he puts in charge. That would be great. So we get some more transparency. I've never seen Obama do it, Biden do it. I mean, now Trump's doing it. And I think this is going to be, this is something that's really good, that's going to pave the way for not only more transparency, but for the transparency that the American people deserve. I mean, we've been waiting years for transparency like this. And I just hope and pray that he does more and more of it. And something tells me that he will. So, anyway, that's what I got for you. Don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe, pass the channel around. And if you can help support the channel, there's a link in my description to my Cash App and my merch store. So remember, people, stay vigilant. Keep praying for each other. Keep praying for the women and the children. Pray for this country. Pray for your enemies. Pray for Donald Trump. And don't forget to pray for all the missing children that they have brought across the border. Peace.